Hey, thank you so much for listening to Reversing Climate Change. This is Ross Kenyon. I'm the host of the show. The two sponsors are Eco Engineers and Philip Lee LLP. Oh, Eco Engineers. What isn't Eco Engineers? I've had a really great vantage point of carbon dioxide removal. And so often I'll start talking with a company and they will say something like, oh, well, we've been working with Eco Engineers for a while now, either trying to build this methodology or just trying to figure this project out, trying to get the quantification right, trying to figure this MRV out. That has happened to me so many times. And I've been glad to see them have so much success with so many companies in our space. Eco Engineers is essentially a consultancy that helps carbon removal tech and project developers get to market effectively. If you've ever started a company, one of the early decisions that you're going to need to make is which of these things can we bring in-house and which of these things do we need to pay consultants for? And often the conventional knowledge here is that it always makes sense to bring stuff in-house if you can. But I think bringing in very experienced consultants early on can save projects a lot of time and money. For instance, you might end up on the phone with David LaGreca. David's going to be on the podcast soon, and David has done, dozens of methodologies within the voluntary carbon market. And if you could just get on the phone with David for a little bit and you are trying to bring a new methodology or protocol to market, you have some new approach, you're a biochar project and you're trying to figure out, given your technology, region, biomass availability, what is the best way for me to work within the options that I have available to me? That's a person that you could very easily be paired with. David will likely shave off time and money from what would otherwise be a process that is pretty overwhelming. And that's just the start of it too. Eco has been engaged with people I've known or worked with, from everything from project design to the actual MRV plans, doing the LCA itself, registering the project, doing the diligence support, feasibility studies, tech evaluations, market eligibility. I feel like they're halfway to being an EPC without actually being an EPC for some of these things. Sometimes you don't necessarily need one person full-time thinking only about your project. Sometimes it makes sense to get 10 people on a fractional basis who have worked on collectively hundreds or maybe thousands of projects. Whether or not that will be the way for your company to go, you'll have to take the calls to figure it out. And I very much think you should do that. The link is in the show notes if you'd like to get in touch with Eco Engineers. Tell them Ross Kenyon sent you. Philip Lee LLP is a law firm with a lot of experience in carbon markets and carbon removal. If you've been working in this space for really any amount of time, you probably have noticed that you do need competent counsel to do business here. The contracts that get signed are frankly pretty weird. You're going to need help from a lawyer with a red pen. I'm sorry to inform you, your only choice is basically who they should be. And if you are deciding who they should be, you should be considering Philip Lee LLP. They've won Environmental Finance's VCM Law Firm of the Year for the last, since 2023, essentially. It hasn't happened yet for 2026. I imagine they're a contender for it this year as well. They are the largest legal team dedicated to the financing and development of carbon projects globally, and they have offices in the US, Europe, and the UK. One cool new thing I just learned, actually, is that they have been listed as a firm in Chambers Global as a global market leader in the area of climate change. This listing aligns Philip Lee LLP with around 15 to 20 of the leading law firms practicing in this practice area in the entire world. So congrats to Philip Lee LLP. Thank you to Philip Lee LLP for your generous support of the show. You make it possible for me to dedicate so much time to putting out content that I hope is useful to our friends and peers and fellow travelers in the world of carbon removal, climate change, and carbon markets. Thanks so much. Here's the show. Hey out there, thank you so much for listening to Reversing Climate Change. I am the host of the podcast, Ross Kenyon. I've worked in carbon dioxide removal and climate tech for nearly 10 years now. Today's episode has some very useful advice, or at least I hope it does, for developers within CDR, or I suspect this is probably applicable beyond climate tech itself and is just good selling. Before I tell you about why I think this is the case, a quick ask, if you could please open up your podcast app right now and give this show a full rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. On Apple Podcasts, you can also write a quick review which is almost certainly the most impactful thing you can do besides sharing it on social media, engaging with it on LinkedIn or on Substack. Very high leverage. And also, I'm just trying to do more stuff on Substack right now. The link to follow me there and support the podcast are in the show notes. At the start of the year, there was a Carbon Unbound in Vancouver, Canada, and today's guest was on a panel that made a bit of a splash. Her name is Taylor Insley. She is the Director of Strategic Growth at Terraset. Terraset is one of the funders of carbon dioxide removal and other types of climate impact projects, and they see themselves as being very catalytic. One thing that's fascinating about them is that they have tax deductibility within their program. So those that contribute to CDR or other climate projects through Terraset are able to do so in a tax-deductible fashion, which is fairly uncommon, to put it lightly. Taylor's made a career within philanthropy, in speaking with donors and trying to connect them to projects that they care about. Taylor knows a lot about selling in this way. How do you get people that are maybe high net worth individuals, family offices, people who want to do good, but maybe don't know exactly what they want to do with it? And Taylor helps them decide that they would actually love to do it through Taylor's preferred causes, is partially how she sees her work, if I can put words into her mouth here. And that has taught her a lot about how to raise money for impact. But in her role at Terraset, the turntables have now turned, as was once famously said. She is now the recipient of pitches, and this has changed so many things about how she views her work and how it can be successful. So this presentation that she gave at Carbon Unbound, this panel, Taylor was talking about how many of the people who would approach her and try to pitch their project were doing so in a way that ultimately ran counter to their goals. They were pitching her as she was coming out of the restroom. They were pitching her without even the bare necessities of social grace, by which I mean asking how someone is, their name, introducing oneself, etc. And one theme that I come back to over and over again as we're discussing this is that of fairness. It seems like all that should matter within climate change is whether or not something works. If you've worked in climate or carbon removal or probably anywhere else that involves humans and hierarchy and status, is that there actually is a fair amount of diplomacy necessary to be successful. You can be successful without diplomacy, and in fact, many people end up building careers around that. But it is also one of those things that at the very least doesn't hurt, and in many cases can actually help push a project over the line. Relationships do matter. I do think there's something that makes us very uncomfortable about acknowledging the importance of relationships. In fact, Taylor and I sort of squirm our way through some of this interview, trying to figure out, why does this feel weird to talk about? Are we being unkind to our peers that are maybe less social in this way? Should this stuff even matter at all? Shouldn't we just be judging by the raw unit economics here? Why are we even bothering with whether or not we feel connected to people? Why does that matter? Honestly, it does feel soft and sort of foolish to say that out loud. It's one of the reasons why some companies will put less emphasis on the interview relative to the strength of one's resume. It also makes me think of the mandarins in China, hundreds of years ago. If you wanted to get a civil service position, all that mattered was, did you do well on the test? It was a true meritocracy, and it was not based upon your family name or how successfully you were able to suck up to the other mandarin in the meeting. All that mattered was, did you bring the goods? And if so, you're going to get the job. So we do attempt to understand fairness and power and status and how all these things interact here. We challenge that while also noting that this might just be the way that humans organize themselves. And insofar as we do care about relative status and wanting to make sure that ourselves and our friends end up on the good side of status, there are also situations in which you will not feel that way. One of the themes I've been thinking about a lot is there are certain places within climate tech where I am considered to be a person of modest distinction. People will be like, oh, I've heard your voice, or like, oh, I know, I see your stuff around LinkedIn, or, oh, I love the memes or whatever. But there are also rooms that I go into where I will have a reaction that they're just unimpressed by me. I suspect this is true of everyone. When I'm in that room where I'm clearly not impressed, my interlocutors, my ostensible peers in this room, I just feel like, humor or creativity or engagement with these types of ideas are not meaningful to you in the same kind of way. Or you just don't like the way that I do it and that feels bad. And then there's a sense that, status games are a big crock of basically. And then you console yourselves with things like Ecclesiastes and the rain falls on the just and the unjust. You're like, yeah. But then even as I will experience those feelings, I will also sometimes be speaking with people in their manner will rub you the wrong way, or you think that what they are doing is just sort of inferior or unlikely to work. And you will also make a judgment that ends up feeling hierarchical, where you will have judged this group or this technology or this person as being not a part of the in-group, but actually someone that is out-grouped in some way. And in fact, some of the consulting work I do is with people who maybe take on the rhetoric and the personal style of someone who is of the out-group. And some of my coaching work is, what is blocking you from seeing yourself as more a member of the in-group? Because otherwise you come across as someone with a chip on their shoulder. You end up being unnecessarily critical of groups that would otherwise be interested in what you're doing because you're so focused on your exclusion, but you're also co-creating your own exclusion by failing to play by these social, interpersonal rules that are often unstated, but are actually really important. It's like, I end up working with people on stuff like that too. I do love the reminder of the fundamental hypocrisy, at least of myself, if not a universal thing about humans, that it is not very fun to be treated as a member of the out group and to be outstatused and reminded of it by people. But then also those same patterns, those same dysfunctions, those same exclusions, one will enact against others at moments too. There's a great meme that I love. It's two frames of a dog with its bowl. The top panel it says something like, my dog when it's looking at my plate, and it has the hammer and sickle, Soviet communist flag of, why don't we all just share? Couldn't civilization be better when we share? And then it's my dog when it's looking at his bowl, and it has the Gadsden flag of, don't tread on me. I can just hear the fife and the snare drum playing in the background there versus the Soviet choral orchestra. And it's funny to think about like how one's position changes how one feels about a certain circumstance. One of the uncomfortable bits of being a human is how much status does matter. This is a toxic thing. This is not a good thing, but some portion of, if you've ever been upgraded or had the financial ability to have first class seating or even premium economy, some portion of the enjoyment is knowing that you are better served than others on the flight and are more comfortable. It isn't just the absolute good of the thing itself. Like some portion of the enjoyment, I think for many people, is knowing by relative terms you are better off. In fact, I've seen some social science research that absolute measures of inequality don't matter that much. What we care a lot about is our relative status in relation to others. People think as long as everyone has their needs met, they'll be satisfied and won't be comparing themselves against their neighbors or their peers. But actually, the relative status of us matters a great deal. These are really powerful influences on us. I can say these things and know that I have some of that inside of my own heart, and that doesn't necessarily make it excitable. Noticing that it's there doesn't make it easier to let it go in some sense. So Taylor and I attempt to untangle what is actually a very thorny ethical and practical set of decisions here. And at the very least, I hope you will walk away with some positive information about how to pitch to Terraset and to Taylor specifically, but also some lessons about how to tailor your message to the audience that you have at hand. And this is also a reminder that you are playing the long game. You're not trying to just get in and close as quickly as you can. You'll be much better off with patience, with building a relationship, with trying to help people. This is a Machiavellian way of understanding. I don't really like putting it in this way, but I sometimes take more general meetings than I need to because you really never know who you're going to be able to connect later. Sometimes I've taken a general meeting, general by which I mean we don't have some specific we're here to talk about this, but we're just getting to know each other and seeing what people are working on and if there's anyone that we can connect them to that might be useful. And sometimes that leads to immediate work or a relationship, or I'm able to connect them with someone right away or them, me. But sometimes it might be 18 months or 3 years. And I'm like, oh yeah, like who was that person doing that interesting like electrochemistry thing with critical minerals? Oh yeah, I do. Let me look. Oh yeah, that was Tyler such and such. And then boom, email sent, relationship made, things are good. Connected two people that wouldn't otherwise have known each other, and now they are doing something together, and that is so thrilling. And I think being able to do that is a really important part of this. And if you're able to build some of those relationships up early, the time may come when life has shunted you in a particular direction, and then the good things can find you as well. Those relationships can help you in turn. For instance, for investors or buyers that you know, if you are in a position to make their lives easier, even if it does not immediately benefit you in the exact way you might like for them being a customer or investor of yours, it's always good to help people find what they are looking for and to make connections they wouldn't have made themselves, because the time may very well come when you would like you can't even say this without going to that Godfather. You come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding and you ask me for a favor. You can't say the day may come and favor in the same sentence. I won't do the Marlon Brando. I can't do it. But you come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding and you ask me for a favor. And the time may come that I may come to ask you for a favor. That's a really quid pro quo transactional way of understanding this. But we are in vocational work to address climate change. And that means sometimes you are doing things that are for the good of the ecosystem as a whole, maybe even things that are good for your potential rivals. But this is a way of building the ecosystem that needs to be built for us to have a lick of a chance of halting or even reversing climate change. I did not intend for this to be a super long intro, but I think this is a good intro for relationships, thinking about how to have an impact in your field, whether that's in carbon removal, climate tech, or something else, as it is advice that has served me very well through my career. All right, here is my chat with Taylor Insley. Taylor, thank you for being here. We've been talking about doing a Terraset show for a while now, but your recent Carbon Unbound performance, I was going to say, your panel ship. How do I speak English about this? You were on a panel and you were talking about weird experiences of being a buyer of carbon removal credits.
Yep.
And how for some reason that confuses everyone and it turns them turns the thinking part of their brain off, and they are behaving in ways that are counter to their goals, is maybe one way to say it. Is that pretty much what happened?
That's a phenomenal way to put it. It does feel like they turn the thinking part of their brains off sometimes and forget that we are also just real people.
Yes. Gosh, what is your experience like as a buyer of credits? Part of the way that I conceptualize it is I imagine many people want to be famous, but then the stories of being famous sound really annoying. It's like you can't really go anywhere. Everyone notices everything you do. One time a friend of mine was in town from the East Coast, and we were eating at a restaurant in LA. And it was not that nice of a restaurant. It was like fast casual and like kind of nice. And I saw someone out of the corner of my eye, and it was Adam Sandler. And we didn't even like see his foot. I just like knew. I was like, that's Adam Sandler for sure.
Just knew. You saw the big T-shirt. And
he looked like he did with just like Big Daddy, with just like long gym shorts and like visor. That's all. It's just like real. Not trying. Everyone obviously notices him. This guy's an A-lister and has been for a super long time, and so has to like walk in. Everyone has their hand up for like high fives, and he doesn't stop and chat, but he goes the high fives. He can't just exist. Everything he does is noticed in some way. And I'm wondering, do you connect with this experience? Do you have a Sandler-esque carbon removal experience?
I think you could say that Terraset is the Adam Sandler of carbon removal.
You're talking about Adam keeps a neck beard. Is that what you're saying? He needs to shave a little more thoroughly.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's interesting because I think we are this we are a buyer, but we are this quasi buyer where we move money in a very specific type of way that I think is really accessible to people. But I do think that it's an incredible it is complex. It's a little complicated for people to understand. Um, and yeah, I think sometimes, we're not the big Googles and the Microsofts, but I do think because we are a nonprofit and we try to be more accessible, we go to places like Unbound and we try to like interface with developers and projects and other partners. And it can get a little pitchy off the bat. And I feel like some of the best partnerships I've gotten have come from those events. But it's like running into somebody over scones at Unbound. It's not the running up to me with a video of methane leaking out of a gas well, it's interesting.
Oh, I guess when people approach you, is there an attempt to proceed with normal etiquette? Is there like a "Hi, how are you? How was your flight?" kind of thing, or is it just "This is my shot. As long as I don't stop talking, they can't walk away" kind of thing? Like, tell me some like anecdotes sufficiently anonymized so you're not humiliating anyone that we can identify. But tell me about it.
Yeah, I think it is a lot. I'd say 75% of the interactions I have are like that, and I will say even anonymized, I s there was one point at a recent Unbound where I found a big buyer, like, sitting by a bar with a sweatshirt hoodie over his head because he was like, "I just need a couple minutes to breathe," like, because I think it is and it comes from a good place. These companies need support. They need buyers, they need money, they need capital to move their projects forward. And so I totally resonate with that, especially as a fundraiser. Like I am also fundraising. So I know what it's like. And I think in some ways it's made me a better
Oh,
fundraiser because I realize what works and what doesn't. Um, but yeah, the ones that remember that I have two kids, or the ones that remember I live in Boston and ask me about that, or even just say like, "Hey, like, where are you flying from?" Like, I feel like I'm way more likely to have those conversations, than the ones that run up and say, "Hi, I'm gonna give you my 30-second pitch, and here's my card." Um, I will say one other one was, again, anonymizing, but there was a period of time at Unbound New York, like 2 years ago, where I was sitting at a chair at one of the, like, back rows, and I was just trying to breathe for a couple minutes because it's a lot post-COVID, it's a lot of talking, and so I just needed a couple minutes, and I was sitting next to a developer, but I had no idea it was a developer, it was someone I had never met, and they watched 4 different other developers come over and sit in the chair across from me and pitch me, and by the end of it, the developer that was sitting next to me was like, "I don't know how you just did that. That was crazy." He's like, "And I was gonna pitch you, but now I'm not gonna pitch you like that." And now that's somebody that we have a relationship with because we were able to kind of, endure that together.
we should create some sort of augmented reality, virtual reality Taylor experience here of just like what is it like to be you at one of these things. You feel like it's really uncomfortable and it doesn't work. And also, like, how do I get out of it? Like, are you going to want to hang out for a super long time if you can't just have a normal conversation with someone? My guess is probably not.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, like I said, I think this sector needs more buyers to be accessible, and I think being honest about the interactions that get you what you need out of buyers is more valuable than us just saying like, "Well, we're not gonna go to these things," you know?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I get tired, but espresso gets me through, you know? Espresso and honesty.
It's just an honesty. I can imagine someone listening to this and feeling frustrated that the personal, the diplomatic, the charm matters because something as important as climate, you should just think that unit economics and the path to scale, those are the things that should matter, how good the science is, not whether or not you enjoy goofing around and talking about scones at the breakfast buffet. Like, why should that matter? Does it? Or is it maybe the problem with you and like, not actually with her?
Maybe I'm the
Maybe you are.
problem.
The call is coming from inside the house, Taylor. Sorry.
Correct. Here's the thing, I may be the problem. I will say that we not to be like, "We're different," but Terraset is different. in the sense we are a different type of buyer. We are a buyer, but we are different in the sense that we do care about the impact. We care about the intersectional approaches. We care about the stories that are coming out of these projects. And we have very human relationships with all of the companies in our portfolio. So, because we're connecting them to the donors who do care about impact. So I think for us, and one of the things that I think I talked with Lauren Wiley about on stage at that Unbound thing was that every buyer is going to care about something a little bit differently. Like, I'm not saying that the science doesn't need to be sound or the methodologies don't need to be proven or the economics need to make sense, because all of those things are also true. But if you want to break in a little bit to the how do I want to say it? Like, you're going to get a lot further with, I think, a lot of us, a lot of these buyers who are one man teams or one woman teams by having relationships with us. And as somebody who fundraises, like I said, I get that. Like, I have a lot better rapport with the funders that I know more about and I can get a coffee with or have that kind of relationship with. And I think right now this sector is in such a do or die moment that we forget that we are all in this together and we're all aiming for the right things and the same things, for the most part.
How would you approach it if a project developer came to you and what they were doing was incredibly impactful, but they were a difficult person? Their social niceties are not present. They aren't necessarily someone that you're having fun on a call with, but this technology and or this project is really impactful. How do you determine whether or not it's worth entering into a medium to long-term relationship with someone like this?
I mean, that's not a reason to not fund someone. I think if they have a project that's really interesting, impactful, unique in the space, and it aligns well with what our donors are looking for, it's worth
Hmm.
pursuing it. I think my point is more you anyone can apply through our intake form online, and we will evaluate all of them based on merits and diligence, and we will reply to them based on whether or not they fit. You'll just be expedited through that process if I can remember, "Oh, we just got, 500K that's meant for biochar in Kenya, and I remember talking to this person that was really wonderful for whatever reason." I wanna reach out in that moment and think about them, not the people who were, you know, just through our intake.
Hmm. I will get this request sometimes of who can you introduce me to with the buyers? And my response, which I'm hoping you can either confirm this or tell me that it doesn't work this way. But the response that I believe for a long time is that these people all have RFPs out for the most part. They want to find good projects. Your job is to do a really good job responding to the RFP. And me trying to help you back channel or cut in line in some ways is not super helpful. In fact, you should probably spend all of your time making your application good. And then maybe like a little chat after you've read this document super well, know what they're looking for, and can connect with them. Maybe at that point it's worth a conversation. But also, it's probably just best to follow their protocol, walk through the front door with a really good app. And if it's a fit, you will get a meeting. You don't necessarily even need my help for this. Is that true?
Yes and
Right.
no.
Tell me.
I think yes and no. I think for big buyers, yes, that is
Mhm.
true. Like, you trying to back channel to Microsoft's team, probably not gonna be it. But I can't speak for them because I'm moving way lower dollars than they are. Um, for us, it is actually because we have 450 in our pipeline that have applied to us,
Wow.
like, we're going through them, but we're a team of 3. So, like, we can only go through them as fast as we can go through them. I think the one part I really do resonate with what you're saying is, well, how do I say that? Yes, I think there is a back channeling that is useful. If you came to me and said, "Hey, Taylor, I know this really cool company that I think would be perfect for Terraset's pre-purchase model," I would absolutely take a call with them because I trust you and I trust your judgment. There are plenty of times where developers will come to us or even apply to us and be asking for $2 million in a certain type of capital that we don't
Hmm.
provide. And so I think there is real value to looking at even just as simply as looking at a website before you talk to buyers or before you apply for their website through their portal or intake. Um, but yeah, I would also say though, not all buyers have RFPs. Like some are still building, right? Like I think through our revolving fund, we're finding it's an on-ramp for a lot of companies that are more small and medium-sized that have never done this before, and so it's their first time, and they don't even know where to start. And I know Tito is running a lot of really good work with air miners around education for that, but a lot of that is just through relationship building and trust of other people, other peers saying like, "This is what I'm doing, and we're gonna, I'll go in on this with you for a first or second time." So yes and no is my answer to you.
There are some points at which myself or someone who has a relationship with buyers can help, but there's also a limit to it. I can't really browbeat Aiden into making Milky Wire do something that they're not going
Yeah.
to do. If the application is half baked, then it's probably still going to get rejected. You still need to do the work. Like, you can't jump over the hard work of doing a really good application, I would say. Unless you have you ever seen
Absolutely.
an application though that counter signals where it's like we're too busy to focus on communication and we're too busy doing the science and engineering this so well that we don't actually have a beautiful pitch deck. We're something else. Like, is that works on you?
1,000%. All the
Oh no.
time.
Oh,
All
you're
the
saying you
time.
get that, but it doesn't work. Or does it?
Oh,
It
it
doesn't
doesn't
work.
work, but I get that all the
Wow.
time.
Hmm.
Yes, 1,000%. And I think one of the things actually that I've been talking we have these 2 donors that are really they do a bunch of business advising and startup advising, and they have been like, "Do you know any companies that, we would offer our time or donate our time to kind of provide guidance on how you do some of that?" And so that's something I wanna work on with our donor network is there's not really a way to volunteer in this sector, but that could be a very interesting way to support, these are big Fortune 500 type companies, that could help. You're laughing.
I wrote this section of an essay recently that got cut for space that I love. Sorry, do you want to finish your thought before I go on this?
No, I want you to tell me your
Like, there
thought.
was a time in startup culture where counter signaling was super prominent, and it would be like, I don't know, probably closer to like late 20 teens, whereas like we're too busy like making cool product, and like comms are what the dumb people do, and we don't really care about that. Flash is associated with less rigor, and the high watermark of that for me was seeing Sam Bankman-Fried on stage with Bill Clinton and Tony Blair, and he was wearing like the gym shorts and the dad shoes and like a t-shirt. You're with former statesmen. It doesn't do what you think it does. Like, if this is counter signaling,
Yeah.
it's dead. It's receded since then. I see it way less common, but even still, there are people and companies that I work with, even recently, where I'm like, I know you're like a brilliant scientist and I know your technology is really cool and I'm happy to work with you on it. This slide deck looks like it was made for GeoCities, and no one is going to give you extra credit because you're so busy doing other stuff. You need to hire someone. You need a designer, or this is not going to work. And sometimes they take that
Yeah.
advice and sometimes they disagree with me. I'm like, okay, but now I'm going to send this podcast. Taylor said 1,000% like 4 times in a row. Are you listening to this show? See, I should be farther from the mic now.
Well, but it's also yes, it's the designer and it's the, like, making it look pretty. I mean, Terraset has a pretty simple brand on purpose, and that's because one of our board members was the head of brand at Stripe. So she's very intentional about our brand, but it's
I've gotten
less
Urgy
even about the
lectures on brand
design.
before. It's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shout out to Erji. She also got me this job.
Wow.
So, yeah, I think it's less about graphic design though, and more about storytelling or how to communicate information. Like I will always go back to this. I have worked the majority of my career has been in conservation and environment and climate. And I barely knew about carbon removal. I knew what it was when you think about the bathtub, but I did not know until I took this job, like what ERW was. And I think so much of this field is this technical and scientific jargon that is so inaccessible. And we just assume that other people are going to do their own research and figure it out. And it's just not how it works. And so if you wanna bring in new buyers to the space who have never done this before, it's incredibly intimidating to be throwing around these scientific and technical words and phrases that make no sense to anybody else. And I remember it was my first week at Terraset and somebody showed me, and this is about me, this has nothing to do with the developer. Someone showed me a video of something that was on fire and was telling me it was biochar. And I remember being like, this doesn't feel like a climate solution. Like, I'm not understanding. Because they just dove right into the science instead of being like, no, the story here is that we're creating something that's going to help these farmers in this specific region and it's going to bring these jobs. And I think that is the stuff that people are caring about more and more. Whether that's more of a burden on companies or not, I think that's a whole conversation. But I think it is important to be able to tell those stories better.
I think it feels unfair to a lot of people, especially if they're not naturally loquacious, someone who likes running their mouth on a podcast on a regular basis. Didn't mean for that to rhyme, but now I'm rapping. Oh, what do I do now?
Keep going. You got it, riff. I can beatbox for you.
Yeah, that's right. I think at some point in my life, I realized that diplomacy counts for potentially way more than it should, and it may not actually be fair. But some of these intangible, humanities-based, feelings-based things, they do count. I think people who come from STEM fields have a harder time making sense of why that might be, if not fair, then just woven into the fabric of reality of interpersonal human relationships in a way that they are not naturally advantaged to succeed at. And that is very frustrating.
Yes.
So we should try to give some positive advice here. Maybe this is a nice transition into that segment. But let's imagine that they are maybe someone who's very passionate about what they're building, but they don't feel as comfortable with social niceties, or they feel like this is their shot and they better get this sentiment out right now. This is their chance to pitch. And maybe they don't have, I'm trying to think of like a way to say this that's not mean or pejorative in some way. Maybe someone who is that particular flavor of nerd that has a harder time with this type of thing. Can we coach them into, I don't know if I'm going to keep this in, but do you watch Love on the Spectrum?
Of course.
What's the like dating coach name? What's her name?
I'm just thinking about Connor.
Dude. Yeah.
I just want to put him in my pocket.
Connor, yeah. Are you also into swords and fantasy novels and all of that?
I am.
There you go. You could probably be buds.
In another world, Connor and I date, but unfortunately, I have a wife, and also he's in Atlanta. So
true, yeah, not too far. Okay, but I guess there's like a coach in that show. I don't even know if I'm going to keep that in there.
I know who you're talking about.
But like some of this does require a little bit of coaching of, okay, you've gotten by on your smarts to date in your scientific and technical engineering life. And now you're coming up on a situation where that still matters quite a lot, but it's not everything. How do we make sure that people at Carbon Unbound approach you in a way that might actually feel restorative, relational, good to you in a way that you would want to keep a conversation going?
Yeah. I feel like such a jerk now that I'm like, if you want to talk to me, you have to say, like, that's not what I mean. Because here's the thing. At the same time, I'm also thinking, like, I would look at anyone's deck and give them, if they genuinely wanted feedback on, like, as someone who does storytelling and communications, like, I would have no problem taking 30 minutes to look at 15 different decks of companies who don't have comms capacity. I think asking in partnership for that, I think, just to answer directly your question, like, you walk up to me or another buyer that happens to be at Unbound, I think asking, hey, you work at Terraset, what's important to you guys right now? What's something cool that you're working on? And then that answer should inform or will inform how you pitch your project. And I think some of that is just human connection. And some of that is, I also think there's just a general etiquette bit about if somebody's talking to somebody else, letting them finish the conversation before you jump in there with a pitch and a business card.
Oh, that happens to you?
Yeah, more often than you think. Okay. But I think that's, again, I get the urgency. Like, the climate crisis is urgent, and us being able to pay bills and support our families with our jobs by selling XYZ is urgent. But I do think there has to be a middle ground somewhere.
I think here I have a like an idea of an approach that I would share with you. Let me know, would this work on you? That sounds like almost manipulative. I'd like
Yeah, but I'm into it. Let's go.
okay. Okay. Project developer listening, expand your horizon time-wise a little bit and say I emailed you, Taylor, and said, "Hey, I'm so and so. This is my company. This is what we're building. We're not really ready for like a proper conversation with Terraset yet, but we want to be ready for something like that 6 months from now. What are some of the steps
Mm,
that we could take to make sure that when the next RFP or the next opportunity comes around, we are best able to take what we have now and have it ready that this would be a fundable Terraset project?" Would you like receiving an email like that or no?
I love an email
You get
like
them? Do
that
people
because
yeah.
I already no, no, that's the first time I've ever
Wow.
heard that. Um, I already, as you're talking, I'm in my head, I'm like, here are the 3 things I would say, make sure you have answers to.
Whoa. Do you have them ready?
Yeah, one is that especially right now, and I think for at least the rest of this calendar year, we'll be looking at what opportunities are catalytic in that, and I know that's a buzzword and I hate using it, but it's the only one I can use in this moment, where we are deploying X amount of capital as a pre-purchase, and it is unlocking a milestone, an investment opportunity, it's backing a loan, it is what is the thing that it is doing more of? Because we aren't moving tons of money. We're moving a couple $100,000 here or there, right? I mean, it's a lot of money, but it's not we're not moving, we're not making $100 million off takes. That's not where we're at. So, great example is just I think I don't know when this podcast is going to go out, but we're announcing next week that we've done a $200,000, 200,000 pound pre-purchase that's unlocked a 1 million pound loan. And that was a deal that we stitched together. And then we brought in an off taker at another $50,000. And so those types of deals are the ones where we're finding we're able to move the needle for these companies and move them instead of from A to B, like A to C, or try to help them get. So I think a clear example of that um, is helpful. I also think we're just not in nature based right now. And there's not really a clear reason for that other than our diligence process it just removes them. It's something we're exploring, but we're not doing it right now. And I think I get a lot of pitches from nature based where I'm just like, we're trying to be better about saying no. We're trying to be better about just saying some of the best conversations I've had with funders is when they're like, I love what you're doing, but I'm going to tell you, like, this is not a fit. And it's great because then you can be like, awesome, it's not a fit. I'm going to move on instead of trying to chase you for 6 months. So we're trying to be better about that. And there was a third thing, but I don't remember it.
One line I love, and I know that you're going to love it too. You probably heard it, is that a quick no is only slightly worse than a slow yes. like,
Mm,
I like it when I get that too. Like, yeah, I didn't have to set annoying reminders on my email to chase it down.
my board member this past week actually told us believe the no, but don't believe the why or question the why. And I think that's really helpful, right? So believe the no, understand that like whatever their why for no, you could probably change it.
Wow, I guess you have to believe a little bit, and it's hard to be in business and or be in fundraising and not want to keep trying if you know that there's money to be had. But
Yeah. Yeah. At some point you have to give up. But that's another ongoing issue of being a nonprofit and fundraising.
yeah, for sure. Okay, so that approach would work. And then the example that you gave of just like having a normal human, how do you do, fellow kids, kind of conversation with you, like trying to relate in some way that isn't going right for the close, like right away.
Yeah. But I do want to say though, I get it. Like
Yeah.
I am also constantly fundraising. Like it is hard when I see somebody who works at a major foundation like floating around at the coffee stand and I'm like, how do I get in there and not just immediately say, "Hi, this is Terraset. I want you to give me money." Like but there's a finesse to it. And I think it's worth investing as a team or a company investing in people who know how to do that well. I do. That's something that I feel like some of the best developer teams that I've met have first and foremost sound science, good projects, And then they have people who know how to finesse that depending on who they're talking to.
My version of this is that I get so many inbound pitches for podcasts, and I say yes
Mm.
to like 1% of them, maybe less. And it's only if it's
Wow.
like someone who almost didn't even like they're reminding me that someone that I wanted to speak with anyways is sort of on the market to be on shows. I'm like, "Oh, they have a book coming out? Like, sure, let's do it." Um, but half the time I'll get them like, I've done a couple episodes on wine and climate change, and I get pitches sometimes where it's like, "We love your show. Here's a show about why decanting is outdated and we're changing the way that we decant." I understand this is AI driven and you probably send this slop to everyone, but
Yep.
like well,
That sounds like AI
they all come
slop.
in the same package too. It's like, "I loved your recent episode with AI looking at the episode and like inserting
Yep.
it." And that's why I'm pitching you a thing that has literally nothing to do with it. I'm just like, "Oh, okay." But even like the ones that are closer, it'll be a pitch that's something like, "This is an episode with this founder who's is ready to talk about why business can be like a environmentally positive thing." I'm just like, "This is maybe the worst pitch I've ever heard." Like, this is I've gotten this pitch 10 times this week, and also it was boring the first time I got it. Like, there's like 400 episodes of this show. Like, give me something. This is
It's 400 episodes. You gotta say something spicy.
I think yeah, it's like the show is just like trying to get real and have like deep conversation. And so I don't know, but I think
Yeah.
probably someone coming up to you and if they understood me, whenever I've had successful pitches and had really fancy guests on, been able to get authors on it. And the way that I'll do it is one, it's easy if they have a book coming out, but also I will read literally everything they've ever written. I'll be like, I read your 8 books or whatever, and this is why I think you should come on. And I've been able to get guests who would never appear on any other climate podcast because they're like, I don't work on this. Like, I don't care. But I'm like, here is
Yeah.
why you should choose me over like everyone else. And I know you well enough and
Yeah.
your work well enough to make a pitch that is very unique to you. I feel like some of the customer discovery work as a developer in carbon removal is probably understanding you as a person, like what you like, and also what Terraset as an organization likes, and knowing your audience and making sure you're pitching that thing right over the plate, and you're not sending a thing about like why your wine decanting podcast guest is
And
good.
it is more the second one. It is more understanding
Mm,
Terraset than it is about
mm.
me. It's more understanding what we're looking for, what we do, the role we occupy in the space. And I think that is relevant for all buyers. Like every buyer is going to be looking for somewhat different things. And I think until we get whatever version of this market is like truly up into scale, that's just going to be kind of how pitching is.
I keep going back and forth then. Like, how important is it to be a normal human with you? And how important is it to just like know what Terraset is interested in and do that?
Okay, number 1 is know who you're
Mhm.
pitching. That is by far who being the organization and what's important to
Mm.
them. What's important to I keep going back to Lauren and Oliver Wyman because that's who I was on that panel with, and we were in fierce agreement. Um, was like what she's looking for is probably different than what I'm looking for, but you could probably get money from both of us if you pitched it the right way? Um, are you laughing because that sounds
No, I'm just
ridiculous?
engaged with it. I don't mean to interrupt you at all.
I and then the nice to have is when you're nice. When you're a nice human. That's the and like you take the time to get to know us.
Is it okay? So if you had two developers who were equally good on being catalytic and the other things that are important to Terraset, um, are you deciding on like who you want to be in business with and have to be on the phone with for the next couple years? Is that how you like the tie goes to the runner who is also nice? That's a weird analogy, but I think you know what I mean.
I think that the
Who's the
this
runner
whole
nice
thing
to?
is
Like
making
the
me look
catcher? Like
horrible.
sorry,
This whole thing is making me look horrible.
I don't think so. I think it's real. I think
The
it's good. You're human.
yes, I mean the tie goes to and I have a couple developers in mind that I'm thinking of. Like the tie goes to the people that I know understand what we're trying to do. Now, there's some buyers where, you start to ask these questions where you're like, "Okay, well, who are we actually like, is this valuable? Is this not?" if we didn't have a relationship with the developer that we do, the like one-to-one or the Adam and I and their two leads, they've said to us, "Are you sure you feel comfortable with this?" Which I realize is a risk for them. We could say, "You're right. I don't know if we feel comfortable about that." But they're checking in with us constantly, and they do feel like true partners, so that we're then more willing to say, "Okay, yeah, this is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna build this deal. We're willing to take an extra risk here on this thing." And I think that's just business. And maybe that's the whole thing, right? Is like this is just business. Like business is relationships. Business is it's relationships, it's conversations, it's so yeah, I don't know how I'm threading that needle, but it's the tie would go to the person that we have a better relationship with for sure.
I don't think that's bad in any way. I read Tina Fey's Bossy Pants like 20 years ago.
Amazing.
Yeah, maybe you remember this story, but she says, yeah,
Icon.
I should probably revisit it. She tells a story in there that when she was head writer at Saturday Night Live, they would try writers out and cast members out for little stints sometimes. And if this person was not someone that she would want to see at 3 in the morning, it didn't matter how funny they were, how brilliant they were. If they were just someone who was like not going to be someone she was relieved to see when they were trying to meet their deadline, nothing else
Yeah.
mattered. And I think that's true. It's hard to separate that though, where if you're in a hiring position or in a way that you're trying to put deals together, you don't want to. There's a way of operationalizing that is biased, where you're just like choosing people who are very similar to yourself and maybe have
Yeah,
this or like too similar. So like you're not actually encouraging enough of the kinds of diversity that you
absolutely.
might. So you have to make sure you're checking yourself. But if you're able to account for that, then I think overall the premise here is like, are you relieved to see this person if you're having a hard time solving a problem? Or are they someone that you're scared to deal with or unpredictable or are bad at responding and may not get back to you for 2 weeks? That it makes this deal way harder. And surely if the soft skills part of this felt more unfair, maybe characterizing it in this way
Yeah.
is like, this is actually just how you collaborate with other people effectively. It's like a proxy for understanding if you will be someone who is productive and helpful to interact with for a long period of time. Is that a safer way to put it? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, because it feels so much more like a partnership.
Right.
And I think, again, I can't speak for every buyer, but at least for us, like we are a nonprofit and we have to respond to our donors. Like we are looking for stories to tell them so that they give us more money, so that we put it into the market. Like that's our whole ethos. And so when we have developers that we see as partners in our portfolio saying, "Hey, I had this cool idea about how Terraset's capital could be really useful." We're way more like we're only 3 people. I mean, we're a tiny team. And I think we have found just so much more success and interest on both sides when we're building things together instead of just pushing money out the door.
So you want people to come up to you and just start telling you how you can do your job better, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes.
But actually,
Yes.
but yeah.
Tell me how I can do my job better. Tell me where I can put my money that's going to be way more catalytic. Like truly, because the other thing that I think Adam says this to me a lot, like I'm not a carbon removal expert. I'm a philanthropy expert. I'm a nonprofit expert. I've spent a decade doing it, but I'm not we have a diligence process. We have experts that advise us on where we should put our money, but I am way more interested in what's going to be a really interesting story for the sector. What's going to bring people into this space that they're not already in here? What's that inroad? Is it livelihoods? Is it ocean health? Is it some specific community in Louisiana that cares about kelp? Like, what is the thing that's going to bring in more money to get us over that 2%, only 2% of philanthropy going into climate to help us solve the climate crisis, or at least solve this very small portion of it? Like for me, it's such a bigger vision. And I appreciate when people understand that that's the vision that Terraset sees this through.
I was just trying to
Yeah, tell me how to do my job better. For sure.
give her
Please.
an earful.
I'd rather that than a
Better
video.
than the video. Yeah, don't do the video thing is probably just gonna be don't do that. Or maybe
I can't wait to see who shows me a video at Unbound this
I
year.
hope someone just like copies the script exactly, and then you're like, "Are you cheated, didn't you? You're just like doing."
Did you see that? Did you see that podcast?
Yeah, you saw that. When I'm thinking about the companies that are doing off takes or the organizations that are doing off takes, I tend to split them by like Microsoft's trying to get like the price per ton for negating all of their historical emissions. That's really important to them, and volume is really important. And I think about Milky Wire,
Mhm.
I'm thinking like, okay, they really want to be catalytic and make sure every dollar of theirs is the like most catalytic use on the margin that it can be. And then when I'm thinking about Terraset, should I be thinking about you are the most story driven offtake, pre-purchase originator that exists? Is it about selling you a really great story that you can take to current and potential donors and say, this is why you should put your money here, rather than the 100 other people who have contacted you for philanthropic donations in the past month?
I would say yes, but that's secondary to the catalytic
Hmm.
piece. Like, I think we are right now, we're seeing anywhere between with the revolving fund model, we're seeing anywhere between like 6 and 7 times leverage for every dollar that we've deployed. So, like, we are looking for opportunities where our $1 to a developer turns into 4, 5, 6, 7, $8
Get
more.
ready for how annoying I'm
Um,
about to be. Get ready.
I can't wait.
Being that catalytic is incredibly story driven. That's all about storytelling, right? You're able to say like, for this
Yeah.
dollar, you get 6 or
Yeah,
7 back. That's how effective we are. We have the best
it's
story
true.
in this.
Yes.
So actually,
Yep.
I'm right. Can you say that?
You're right.
I've extracted an admission.
You're right. You got that recorded and everything.
Okay, how great. Um, I don't is that true for, like, many of your peers? Like, do you
Yeah.
think they are also thinking this way, or do you think that is something that you and or Terraset is uniquely obsessed with?
I mean, it's if you wanna get real meta with it, like, it's all storytelling, right?
I love
Like,
doing stuff like that.
corporates are doing this to tell the story that they care about climate. Like, I mean, they could do it for a bottom line, they do it for a whole bunch of reasons, but, like, the main reason is the story that there's a better that's for climate. Like, that right? Am I wrong in
I
that?
don't think so. I say things like it's all storytelling, but also I'm a storyteller who wants to generate new
Everything's a
clients. So,
story.
like, yeah, of course, I mean, it's all storytelling when you think about it.
Everything's a
I mean, if you
story.
talk to a chemist, they're like, "It's all chemistry." It's all like,
It's
everyone just has this, all you got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail kind of dynamic, but yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I would say yes. I would say for all of us, especially right now, like, I was just at this corporate citizenship conference, and for them, it's about the story of how this work connects with the communities that they care about. And so much of that conference was explaining how you sell the things you care about to your leadership teams and convince them to put money to the things that you care about. And so it was such an interesting layer removed, right? Because those are the people we're raising money from, more on the corporate philanthropy side, some on the corporate buyer side. But they we then go to them and say, "Hey, this is something we care about. Here's your story." And they're like, "Okay, can you help me tell that story to the people who actually make decisions?" And it's like before you know it, it's just like a story and a story and a story, and it's like crafting this thing all to get money back to this thing you care about.
So it is all storytelling.
It's
Okay,
all
fine.
storytelling. Maybe you're right. I'm actually so curious what Erji would think about this.
Uh, Urgi will be on here at some point.
Here.
I am in such frequent communication with her that it's, like, only a matter of time. We just need to find the thing is with people I'm pals with and I talk with a lot, the pressure is on to find, like, the exact right thing because it can be anything. She's fallen
Yeah.
into that terrible, terrible pit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why our last call, you just stopped me. You were like, "I'm just gonna stop you there and we're gonna put this on the
Yeah, I mean, it
podcast."
is it's great advice too. It's nice to be able to talk about this frankly because these things, I feel like we did
Yeah.
cover quite a lot here that should be useful. If there was
I
maybe
hope so.
one gem that we could share with people of, this is Taylor's advice that can be carved into a monument of how to successfully pitch her slash Terraset slash maybe the no, I'm carving it. It's already being commissioned as we speak. What,
I don't
you
like
don't like
that.
that? Okay, yeah. It'll probably change over time. So maybe it's
Erosion,
erosion. Yeah,
climate.
yeah, it's not gonna work. What's like the best single piece of advice? Because you are a fundraiser, you are soliciting donors for funds for your work.
Mhm.
Bring that into here. Like, what have you learned from operating in both of these worlds as a recipient of pitches, as a solicitor, as a giver of pitches. Connect it back to your donor world. What can you teach people about that space that's relevant here?
We're all human. Like, not to be really trite, but, like, we're all human, and I think remembering that, yes, I deploy capital to these things and Terraset deploys capital to these things, like, we are still people trying to that have all of our own internal goals we're trying to meet. Um, and so meeting us where those goals are, trying to help us achieve the goals that our company or our organization are trying to meet is, like, that's gold for us. Or the shorter version of that is tell me how to do my job better.
Oh God. You're gonna get a lot of that happening to you. And I think a lot of people are gonna hear this and ask me for the thing where I'm like, oh, I actually probably could put in a word. And people are like, can you put in a word for me? I'm like,
Here's the thing, I will say on this podcast, I will give 30 minutes of reviewing anybody's pitch deck as a buyer if they're interested.
one idea I haven't.
You might wanna take that out.
Wait, sorry, what did you say?
Says that you might wanna take
Take
that
that
out.
out? You can keep it in. Do you want me to take it out? Oh, okay.
No,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it's in there. I mean it.
One thing that I've heard, and I've also given this advice, and I'm sure it depends upon which buyer it is, but how important is the first impression? Like, I've had some people who have applied for RFPs with not that good of applications. I'm like, or they were able even to take a meeting with a buyer and it didn't go super well because they weren't prepared enough, or they weren't far enough along, or they didn't even understand what the buyer's motivations were, so they poorly pitched to it, and they feel like that relationship has maybe been damaged. How important is it to make sure you only approach buyers at the right moment?
I think relationship building is more important. Like, I think if you're not ready for the type of money that we are deploying, still knowing who you are is something like I want to know who's in the ecosystem and who's doing interesting things. And if it's not now, it's 6 months from now that you need us, that's great. I also just, I don't know. I don't think first impressions are as important as, to me, they're not. To me, they're not.
Yeah, I've heard people say this, but I have not encountered it nearly as much. Where I'm like, I don't know, like you had a bad pitch to Microsoft 2 years ago, and you came back and you pitched again. Like it might be a different person at that point. It might be
Yeah.
totally fine. Like maybe you've matured enough and it's okay.
I also think there's something about we've been trying to figure this out with our portfolio because things change so much in this space. Like 4 months or 6 months changes a lot. So you applying to us in November, like by May, you're a different project. You're doing different things, right? And so I do think we're trying to figure out how to make it easier for us to get those updates so that we know where everybody's at. But I think it I don't take first impressions that seriously.
I've worked with companies before that have went right to pitching Microsoft and Frontier, and I don't love putting it this way, but like you're in the minor leagues, you go to Milky Wire, Robert Hogan gives you the
Go
thumbs
to
up, you get
Terraset.
Terraset. Once you have those stamps where you are pre-vetted, you are kind of already seen as more legitimate and more mature and ready for the bigger deals. You're shot at the majors. I don't really like. I rewatched Moneyball the other day. Sorry, that's all that has happened. I'm not gonna.
Right,
And then I had to
right.
like I hang out with Aiden sometimes, and I have to pretend like I'm real sporty, and I just can't really do it. But yeah, like there's a life cycle to this thing, right? But sometimes people don't even
Mhm.
necessarily know that that's kind of the historical route that is set up for you. And that to me, I'm like, oh, I wish you would have checked in a little bit earlier because then we could have prepared you better.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think there's a clear progression to how this all works, and I think trying to jump ahead, I I don't know. I can't imagine that. I wouldn't go to a funder and say, "Hi, I'm ready for a $100 million fund," when I've only raised 10 million, you know?
Yeah, that seems like a big
So,
leap. I don't have a lot of experience
that's a
doing
big
that,
leap.
but that does seem.
Team of 3. Like, we can do a lot. I don't know the 100 million, although Adam might be mad at me for saying
Yeah,
that.
yeah. You're just. What do you mean? We just had someone on the hook for that, and now
What if we just had a funder tell us they were gonna give us
you're
$100
like, "Oh, we could
million?
perfectly deploy that tomorrow. Like, we have shovel-ready
We could
projects. We're
absolutely
good."
totally have capacity
Yeah,
for
okay,
that.
cool. That's good to know. Is there anything that I don't know enough about philanthropy or what you do that I wouldn't even think to ask about that is like totally salient in your brain?
That's a good question. I don't know. I feel like you understand what Terraset does. Um, I think the philanthropy piece, like the one thing I really want people to come away with, we're talking about this on the Unbound panel, so it's a bit of a teaser, is that I think that we as a sector need to be way more creative about how we're moving money into the sector, especially right now, especially in this current political climate and this current market. Um, being as a developer, being creative and intentional about how and where money can come from, I think is going to be what carries us through this next year. Um, and so I think philanthropy is a very untapped tool that people just don't think about because they think about rescue charities for cats and they don't think like this is a system changing amount of money. Um, and that's one thing that I just love about it. Like for me, philanthropy and nonprofits is connecting large amounts of money with things that I deeply care about. And it's not just raising money and it's not just deploying it, it's connecting a donor or a family office with something that's really important to me and to the world. Um, so I think, yeah, I think that's the one thing I would say is like you can be really creative with philanthropy in a way that I don't think our sector has fully embraced yet.
Taylor, thanks for being here. I'm going to put this out, I think, the Monday before Carbon Unbound so that people can get good information about what to do. Hopefully that's enough time. It's probably not to get people geared up for how
Well, 24 hours.
yeah. You got to have urgency with the podcast, otherwise it's just like I'm competing with true crime and the paranormal and I just can't do it unless there's urgency. But this is it.
Hard. It's really hard.
But thank you for being here. Thank you for giving, I think, real answers to some fairly difficult questions about how much charm and interpersonal skills matter. It was a very good show for that reason.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me.